Hi, if you like the video, please remember to subscribe.
Hi, it's Rob from robnonphoto.com and the SCL Subject Composition and Light Photography podcast with a quick look at my Pentacon M42 29mm f2.8 manual focus lens. And I'll just start off by saying that I really like this lens. It's a old film SLR lens, and it's the sort of Pentacon lens system made in East Germany, I guess in the 70s and 80s. So it's a screw fitting, so you've got to get a special adapter first to make it fit your camera, and I'll just quickly show you that to start off with first. So the screw fitting basically is this bad boy that you can see here that converts the M42 screw mount to a bayonet type, bayonet type. So all you do is you buy them on eBay. I think this one was about £5 or £6. This one's got a flange on it that means that it can work with auto or manual lenses, and I guess I better explain what that means as well. In old film SLRs, one of the things that they do is obviously you change the aperture manually by turning the ring like that, but as you know, when you're closed up, when you to say f22 16 11 8, your viewfinder would be very, very dark if the aperture sort of stayed that way. See as I'm changing the size there? So what happens is there's a little pin on the bottom that changes that, so that when you're using a film camera, what happens is this little pin on the bottom, I think it's there, pushes in and keeps it open all the time. So if we look through there, and if I turn that, you see how it's opening and closing? But what you would do is you would set that to automatic, and then when I turn the aperture ring, nothing happens, so that you can see through the viewfinder, so the viewfinder doesn't get too dark. But the problem with that is that when you're using the camera, there's no way for the camera to press that ring to make the aperture close up when it takes the photograph. So what you have to do is if you get one of these M42 adapters that has a flange on it that always presses that closed, it means that you can use the any lenses that are either automatic or manual M42 lenses. So as you can see from the front, it's a Pentacon 29mm f2.8. Now the 29mm focal length is a wide angle lens, but when you're using a crop sensor camera like the 350D Rebel XT, because that has a crop factor of 1.6 times, it ends up being round about sort of like a 50mm lens, so it gives you a really nice perspective. And in one of my previous videos I was reviewing the Canon 50mm 1.8, and I sort of said that that was a little bit too telephoto for my style of photography with landscapes and stuff like that. But the Pentacon 29mm is a really nice focal length and gives really nice framing, where things kind of, when you're using that sort of wide angle look, it makes things sort of shoot away from your viewpoint really, really fast, so lines converge, and you get that nice wide look. It's manual focus, so if we look at the sort of top of the lens, what you can see is the focusing ring there. Okay, let me turn it a bit so you can see it properly. And so you can choose your aperture, and then you can focus up. And what you can probably also just about see, maybe if I zoom in a little bit like that, see if it can focus. No, not quite. But what it can do is you've also got depth of field readings on here as well. So you know that when you're at f8, for example, there, everything will be in focus. So if you focus on something let's have a look, say something, I don't know, 4 feet away, you know, everything's going to be in focus from 8 feet away, from infinity, right through to 1.3 meters away. So that's really good when you're concentrating on depth of field. Now you may think, oh dear, manual focusing, I've got to do manual exposure and everything. Well, on the Canon cameras and a few others, you don't have to, because what happens is when you turn your camera on, change it to aperture priority mode, and the camera automatically then knows that it's working with a lens that it can't change the aperture to. So all it does then is it just looks at the light that's coming through the camera and then sets the shutter speed accordingly. And what I've found is that when you're using this particular lens on the 350D, what you tend to do is just dial in a little bit of exposure compensation to underexpose a little bit, and then it tends to get the exposures really, really nice. So again, my sort of workflow is set the ISO of the camera. Say, I don't know, say today I went out and it was fairly dark, so I set it to ISO 400 because I was hand holding. And then I would kind of choose the aperture for the type of depth of field I wanted. So I was trying to shoot at like f5.6 or 8 because I wanted a big depth of field. And then you can compose your shot, press the button to see what the shutter speed's going to be, and then you can adjust your aperture or ISO accordingly, and then you can sort of focus. Focusing is a little bit fiddly because you are manually focusing, but what you tend to do is you use the over focus and under focus method. So you sort of compose your shot, focus on what you want to be in focus, go slightly past, so it's out of focus, come back a bit so it's out of focus the other way, then move the lens a little bit forward, and that means that then what you're shooting will be in focus because you've got no manual focusing aids on the screen on the 350D or most digital SLRs. Or the other way would be to, you know, set it up on a tripod, choose your aperture, say if we were using like f11, and then we know that at f11 or say f16 for example, we can line up, say, the infinity mark there, and we know that at f16, if we focus, if we set it up, say, on something 1.3 meters away, everything's going to be in focus from infinity right down to almost right up to the camera at 0.6 meters away. So that's really good. I picked this lens up at the car boot sale, I think it was about £5 with an old film SLR, and it's been brilliant. I use it a lot. I prefer to have it on if I'm just going out with one lens, I prefer to have this lens on the camera than my Canon 50mm, and that's why this Christmas I'm going to be getting the Canon 28mm EF lens, so it'd be really good to compare the two. But you know, if you've just got a kit lens or something, you fancy playing around with M42 lenses, get the adapter off eBay, and then I'd heartily recommend the Pentacon 29mm. They're not silly expensive. They produce nice sharp photographs, a bit blurry around the corners sometimes, but you'd be more than happy. And it's a great walk around wide angle lens. Okay, so that's Rob from robnunphoto.com with a quick review of the Pentacon 29mm f2.8 lens, and I'll be seeing you on Flickr.